Ladies and gentlemen, sister and brothers, most people make the same mistake after a breakup. They fixate on the other person. They replay the memories. They stalk their ex's social media. They analyze every word, every action, and they put all their power outside of themselves. And then they wonder why they feel empty, weak, and desperate. The truth is, the moment you hand over your emotional control to someone else, you lose the very thing that makes you magnetic. You cannot attract anyone, let alone an ex, from a place of weakness. Attraction is born out of power, out of certainty, and out of energy. That's why the first step, the single most important shift, is to turn all that focus back inward. As you've got to stop looking outward and start asking yourself the hard questions. Who am I without this relationship? What do I actually want for my life? What kind of person do I need to become to create a future so powerful, so exciting that people are drawn to me naturally? Because here's the reality, your ex is not attracted to your pain. They're not drawn back to you because you're posting sad quotes online or begging for another chance. They're only drawn when they feel that you shifted, that something inside of you has changed, that you're not the same person they walked away from. When you shift the focus inward, you start redirecting all that emotional energy into your own growth. Instead of chasing, you're building. Instead of begging, you're creating. Instead of waiting, you're evolving. That's what flips the dynamic. Because when you start showing up differently, when your energy rises, when your confidence grows, when your presence commands attention, it doesn't just impact you, it impacts how others perceive you. And suddenly the person who thought they had the upper hand starts to question whether they made the right choice. Think about this. Every single time you obsess over someone else, you are feeding them your energy. You are literally fueling their sense of importance while starving your own. But the moment you pull that energy back, the moment you decide to invest it in your health, your career, as your relationships, your happiness, that's the moment you start to glow differently. People can sense it, they can feel when you've shifted. And it's irresistible, not just to an ex, but to the world. Now, let's be honest. Shifting the focus inward isn't comfortable at first because it forces you to face the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. It means owning the fact that maybe you lost yourself in that relationship. Maybe you gave too much. Maybe you forgot your own value because you were so busy trying to prove it to someone else. But that discomfort is exactly what builds your strength. That discomfort is the fire that forges a new identity. When you make yourself the priority, everything changes. You start waking up earlier. You start working on your body. You start developing your mind. You start surrounding yourself with people who lift you higher instead of dragging you down. And all of that compounds. All of that creates momentum. And momentum is what makes you unstoppable, because the truth is people are drawn to momentum. They're drawn to growth. They're drawn to someone who's clearly going places. If you want 99% of exes to look back at you and feel that magnetic pull, as you don't get there by waiting for them to notice you, you get there by becoming the version of yourself that cannot be ignored. You get there by showing through your actions that you're too busy building your life to be waiting around. And the irony is, when you do that, when you stop needing them, when you stop obsessing over them, when you genuinely shift the focus inward, that's when they start to feel the shift. That's when they start to wonder. That's when they start to chase. As one of the greatest mistakes people make after a breakup is giving away all of their power. They hand it over without even realizing it. They sit by the phone waiting for a text. They change their routines, hoping to bump into their ex. They replay old conversations in their minds like a broken record, and every action becomes a reaction to what the other person is doing or not doing. This is not power, this is captivity. And when you are captive to someone else's approval, you become invisible to yourself. If you want someone to chase you, if you want them to look back and realize what they lost, the first step is reclaiming your power. Power comes from detachment, not from pretending you don't care, but from genuinely shifting your energy away from desperation and back into your own control. Detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means clarity. It means that no matter what your ex does, whether they stay silent, whether they move on quickly, whether they test you with breadcrumbs, you stay centered. You stop letting their choices dictate your emotions. You take control of how you feel, how you think, and how you act. That's real power. Think about it. Every time you send a needy message, as every time you wait hours refreshing your phone, you are reinforcing the belief that they have control. And people are never attracted to what they control. They're attracted to what they respect, what they can't fully predict, what feels like it's alive with energy. Respect comes when you step back into your own strength. Respect comes when you set boundaries and refuse to play the games that drain your energy. Reclaiming your power also means remembering who you were before the relationship and, more importantly, deciding who you are going to become now. Maybe you forgot how capable you were. Maybe you let your standards slide. Maybe you became smaller in order to keep the peace, thinking that by dimming your own light you could hold on to someone. But power comes back the moment you decide to raise your standards again. It comes back when you stop asking, how do I make them want me? And start asking, how do I make myself unstoppable? When you reclaim your power, you create a shift in the dynamic. Instead of them feeling like they can have you at any moment, they begin to sense a distance. As they begin to feel uncertainty, and uncertainty creates attraction, suddenly the person who thought they could walk away without consequence was a pull of curiosity. They wonder what you're doing, why you're so composed, why you're not chasing like they expected. That mystery fuels desire, and that desire only grows stronger the more you stand firm in your self-respect. But let's be clear, power is not about games. It's not about manipulation. It's about energy. When you're in your power, you walk differently. You talk differently. You carry yourself with certainty instead of doubt. You stop apologizing for your presence. You stop shrinking in hopes of being accepted. And that change doesn't just affect your ex, as it affects everyone around you. People can feel it when someone has reclaimed their energy. They lean in closer. They want to be part of it. They want to know what shifted. And here's what happens when you reclaim your power. You start making decisions from strength instead of fear. You stop asking, what if they don't come back? And you start asking, what kind of life am I building and who deserves to be in it? You begin to realize that your value was never lost. It was only hidden under the layers of insecurity and dependency that came from putting someone else above yourself. By reclaiming your power, you peel back those layers and expose the version of you that is confident, magnetic, and undeniable. Your ex doesn't chase because you beg. They don't chase because you wait. They chase because they feel the shift. They feel that you're no longer controlled by them. They feel that you're operating from a higher frequency. And humans are wired to desire what they cannot control. They are drawn back to the fire of someone who has rediscovered their strength. They are compelled by the force of someone who knows their worth and refuses to settle for less. At the core of every transformation is identity. The way you see yourself, the story you tell yourself about who you are, that's what drives your choices, your habits, and the energy you put out into the world. And here's the truth. If your ex left, it wasn't just about circumstances. In most cases, it's because the version of you that showed up in that relationship wasn't the version that pulled them in at the beginning. Somewhere along the way, your identity shrank. You settled. You forgot the powerful, confident, magnetic self you were capable of being. And if you want someone to chase you, if you want them to feel that fire again, it starts with upgrading your identity. Upgrading your identity means rewriting the script. Most people are stuck in an identity that's defined by their past experiences, their failures, or what someone else told them they were worth. They say, I'm the one who got left. I'm the one who's not enough. I'm the one who always gets hurt. That story becomes their truth, and it traps them in a cycle of insecurity and self-doubt. But the moment you decide to break that story, the moment you say, that is who I was, not who I am becoming, you begin to step into a new version of yourself. Think about the person you admire the most, someone who exudes confidence, energy, and magnetism. Do you think they sit around replaying the past and questioning their value? No. They've created an identity that commands respect, and you can do the same. The key is to build habits, routines, and standards that align with the upgraded version of who you want to be. If your old identity was tied to neediness, indecision, or fear, your new identity has to be tied to strength, clarity, and abundance. When you start upgrading your identity, people notice. You walk in a room differently, you speak differently, your body language shifts. Your energy rises, and without saying a word, you communicate that you are no longer the same person who was left behind. You are now someone who chooses, not someone who waits to be chosen. And that subtle but powerful shift sends a shockwave through your ex's perception. Suddenly, they can't put you in the same box anymore. They can't define you by who you used to be. They have to reevaluate, and that reevaluation plants the seed of desire. Upgrading your identity also means chasing growth with relentless focus. You can't upgrade by doing the same things you've always done. You've got to challenge yourself, take risks, push your limits. Whether it's your career, your health, your mindset, or your relationships, you need to demand more from yourself. Because when you level up in any area of life, it raises the standard for every other area, and people are drawn to someone who refuses to stagnate. Growth is attractive, stagnation is not. But here's where most people fail. They think upgrading their identity is about changing on the surface, getting a new haircut, buying new clothes, posting happy pictures to prove they've moved on. That's not identity. That's a mask. Real identity change comes from within. It comes from deciding that your value is not negotiable. It comes from refusing to shrink yourself to fit someone else's expectations. It comes from embracing the truth that you are worth more, and you will live in a way that proves it every single day. When you begin living from that upgraded identity, you don't have to chase anyone. They start noticing you because your energy is different. Your ex, who thought they knew you, starts to feel that they don't anymore. They sense that you've grown beyond the version they left. And that mystery, that transformation is what makes them curious. It makes them want to come closer. It makes them chase. Scarcity is one of the most dangerous mindsets you can carry after a breakup, as it's the voice that says, I'll never find someone like them again. What if they were my only shot? What if I blew my one chance at love? That thinking traps you in fear, and fear is the exact opposite of attraction. Scarcity makes you cling tighter, as it makes you settle for less, and it makes you operate from a place of weakness. And weakness never pulls someone back into your life. It pushes them away. If you want your ex to feel that magnetic pull, if you want them to look back at you differently, you must step into the mindset of abundance. Living in abundance means realizing that your value is not tied to one person. It means understanding that the world is filled with opportunities, experiences, and connections waiting for you. It means knowing that you are not defined by who left, but by how you rise. Because here's the truth, when you live as if your ex is the only option, you make yourself smaller, you diminish your own energy. But when you live with the belief that there are endless possibilities for you, new people, new paths, new experiences, you radiate confidence, and confidence is magnetic. Abundance is not about pretending you don't care. It's not about faking happiness or pretending you're fine when you're not. Abundance is about shifting your perspective. It's about making choices that come from strength instead of fear. When you live in scarcity, you send desperate texts. You stalk social media, you wait for their validation. When you live in abundance, you build a life that excites you so much you don't have time to beg for attention. You fill your days with growth, joy, and progress. And that energy is impossible to ignore. Think about how the human mind works. We are wired to desire what seems valuable, rare, and full of energy. We are repelled by what feels desperate, weak, or easily available. Scarcity makes you needy, and neediness kills attraction. Abundance makes you radiant, and radiance sparks curiosity. When your ex sees you thriving, when they see you moving forward with confidence, when they realize that your life is expanding without them, that's when something powerful happens. They start to question whether they made the right decision. They start to feel the loss, not because you told them they should, but because your energy shows them that you are no longer waiting around. Living in abundance also means embracing new experiences. Try new hobbies, meet new people, explore new places. Expand your world in ways that show you just how much life is waiting for you outside of that one relationship. When you operate this way, you remind yourself that your worth is not dependent on whether your ex is in your life. You begin to see that love, joy, and fulfillment can come from countless sources. And ironically, when you stop needing your ex, that's when they start to feel the need for you. Scarcity whispers, don't lose them, they're everything. Abundance declares, I am everything, and I get to choose who shares this life with me. That shift is powerful. That shift makes you magnetic, because when you truly live in abundance, as you no longer chase, you no longer beg, you no longer wait, you live. And when you live with that much fullness, when you radiate that much energy, people are drawn back into your orbit. Your ex begins to notice that they are not the center of your world anymore. And that realization creates a pull they cannot resist. Attraction at its core is not logical, it's primal, it's driven by instinct, by the subconscious triggers that make someone lean in closer, that make their heart race a little faster, that make them feel a pull they can't explain. And if you want your ex to chase you, you need to understand how desire actually works. People don't chase what's predictable. They don't crave what's certain. They chase what feels alive, what feels powerful, what feels like it has grown beyond their grasp. That's the instinct you need to awaken. Triggering desire starts with one thing: transformation. When your ex sees you as the exact same person they left behind, there is no reason for them to feel differently, as they already know that version of you. But when you change, when your energy shifts, when your presence deepens, when you show up as someone who is more confident, more focused, more magnetic, that disrupts their mental picture of you. It forces them to reconsider. It plants a seed of curiosity. They begin to wonder what happened. How did they change so much? Did I underestimate them? That curiosity is the spark of desire. Think about it. Human beings are wired to value what grows, what evolves, what doesn't stay stagnant. The moment you stop obsessing over the past and start building a powerful present, your ex begins to see a different version of you. And that new version, the one they can't fully predict or control, is the one that ignites their attraction. It's not about chasing them. It's about becoming so magnetic that they can't help but feel pulled back toward you. Another way you trigger desire is through independence. Nothing is more attractive than someone who is whole on their own. When you stop sending messages of neediness, when you stop broadcasting that your life is incomplete without them, you shift the dynamic. Instead of being the person who clings, you become the person who chooses. And choice is powerful. It flips the script. Instead of them feeling like you're waiting for their return, they start to wonder if they still have access to you. That uncertainty creates tension, and tension fuels desire. But here's the deeper truth. Desire is not about games. It's about energy. It's the energy of certainty in who you are. It's the energy of someone who has purpose, someone who is lit up from within. When you live with passion, whether it's in your career, your health, your relationships, or your personal growth, you radiate a force that others can feel. That force is contagious. People want to be around it. And your ex, who once thought they had you figured out, suddenly feels that energy again. And it pulls them back in ways logic cannot explain. Desire is also triggered by the unknown. When you stop broadcasting every detail of your life, when you stop seeking validation from your ex, you create space for mystery. And mystery is one of the most powerful forces in attraction. When they don't know exactly what you're doing, when they can't predict your every move, their mind begins to fill in the gaps. And the human mind always magnifies what it doesn't fully understand. That magnification creates intrigue, and intrigue is the birthplace of pursuit. You want to know the real reason 99% of exes chase. It's not because someone begged, it's not because someone pleaded, it's because they felt something shift that they couldn't control. They felt a spark that forced them to see the other person differently. And that spark is always triggered when you stop living in scarcity, stop living in weakness, and start living in power. When you show up transformed, when you embody independence, when you radiate energy, and when you protect an element of mystery, you awaken something primal inside them. You awaken their instinct to chase.